Ladies and gentlemen, it is the month of February, and you know what that means. Not what you think. Uh, that means that we're going to change keys from D to G. I don't know if I mentioned it in one of my previous videos last month, but I know to a lot of my in person students, I mentioned that I was going to change to the key of G. Thus, that's what I'm doing here. Let me take a sip of the coffee. Um, Here in this particular video, I just want to hit the notes um, and shapes of playing G major. And by that, I mean just single notes. I mean, I recurrently observe, and I say partly like why I'm talking about this is I find some of even the most skilled players, like I've had some students, like speed wise, anyways, like they can play faster than me, and usually that I'm referring to people that like to shred or play metal. Sometimes they can outplay me in terms of speed, but in the end, it just kind of sounds like bluff because they don't really know what they're doing. So, reminder that the major scale is the foundation for all things music. I'm not going to go into modes, but if you're feeling froggy, search modes and you'll begin to see it really all starts with the major scale. Anyhow, in this lesson, I'm going to cover G major extensively. And by extensively, I mean all kinds of positions and starting points. So ultimately, in the end, you should have ultimately three different octaves that you can play it. With that, it's a lot to go over. Let's get started. So on the third fret of the E, much like if you already know an open G, this might be the position for you to pick up on first. You would play 3 of the E, 0, 2, 3, 0, 2, 4 on the D, and then just the G open. If we want to do 2 octaves carrying on from there, there's a couple of different approaches. Let's go with 0, 2 on the G, that is, and then the B, 0, 1, 3, and then on the E, 0, 2, 3. And very similar to that, and honestly, between the one I just did and the one I'm about to show you, I would lean towards more towards the one I'm about to show you because it's related to all scales starting on the E, major scales starting on the E, and others too, which you'll see momentarily. Uh, so instead, basically, instead of using all those opens, we're going to actually fret everything. So for this one, I would play, again, starting with the middle, 3, 5 on the E, 2, 3, 5, 2, 4, 5. That would be the end. That's 1 octave, but we're playing 2 octaves in this position. From that 5, go to the G, 2, 4, 5, and then 3, 5 on the E, the B, and then 2, 3, still on the high E. Something that I find is good practice, and like lots of times, or in the past, lots of times when people like their first lesson or something, I usually start in E or A, but I'll highlight when somebody says this key, all these different spots go off in my head. That's kind of what I want to show you here. So basically, if you are unaware, we can generate every note on any string. That being said, it's kind of like you just need to know where G is on the A. So we played there starting at the E. Now let's go to the A. And in this case, I am just hitting 1 octave. So for the A, it's essentially the same shape we just played. 10, 10, 12, then 9, 10, 12, 9, 11, 12. And actually, I'm just going to keep going. So the next string, the D string, and copying kind of that same shape, leading with the middle finger, I would play 5, 7 to the G, 4, 5, 7 to the B, 5, 7, 8. Then we're at the G string, which is kind of a 2 for 1. You could either play zero, similar to what we just did in the very first one, 0 2. Like there's so many approaches as I'm doing it right now. Again, I am wanting you to think fretted. Let's go 0 2 4, and then no, let's go 0 2, and then open 1 3, open 2 3. Although just as well, like I was saying, it's like some of those other ones that we previously did. You could play different notes, and ultimately that's what this is about: is understanding the note is the note. You could play it somewhere different. It's kind of like what's your comfort level or aim. But so I was saying that one's a 2 for 1 because 0 and 12 are the same, meaning I could go to 12 of the G, and now I'm getting that fretted sensation again. On this, or in this particular shape, leading from the G, I don't lead with the middle, because the third, the note that was the third note in the scale, 1 2 3, it was originally behind the starting point, but when you're playing on the G, it's actually directly down. So I would lead with the index and play 12 14, and then 12 13 15, and then 12 14 15. And now with that, I'm essentially, or actually I want to pause and say, so something you might practice is playing just maybe one octave on each of those strings, like up and down, something like this. I played the wrong scale. Let's try that again. Maybe even work that backwards too. But moving on, so a slightly different shape that again, all of these shapes, as I said a second ago, I would use a certain one with a certain objective in mind. For this next one, it would be in the mind of, I want to get from the low point to the high point in a short amount of time. That being said, this time I'm going to lead with the index and play 3 5 7 on the E, ideally index ring pinky, and then same frets again on the A string, 3 5 7, and then 4 5 on the D string. That would be one octave, and then it's like momentarily we're gonna like just go through them all seamlessly. From here, it will feel like we're doing the same thing we were just doing a second ago and playing 5 7 4 5 7 5 7 8. We did that shape earlier, and then from there, there's a couple of different ways we could go about it. But observing now we're on the B, it's like we don't really have the option of just going down per se. We're gonna have to come up at some point to ultimately get to this 15. For this example, let's just stay where we are, if you will, like play as many notes as we can right here, which would mean playing 8 10 on the B, 7 8 10 on the high E, and then from here I'm going to have to start sliding 12 14 15. So now, as I was saying, you could essentially kind of blend those all together. Now, side note or edit, I just noticed as I was doing it, I actually did not play 7 10. I played, or it's not 7 10, 8 10. In the flow, I let, we're finishing the 8 of the B with our pinky. I actually found myself playing 5 7 8 on the high E and then continuing as said before. And same thing, like practice that going backwards. Uh-oh. I noticed even then I actually didn't follow the shape we use going up, but it's a comfort thing. And so that's why, again, I'm sharing all these different ways to do the same thing, because it's a feeling thing sometimes. Like you may know one shape, but as long as you understand, hey, I could do this instead and it feels more comfortable in the heat of the moment, go for that one. I believe that's it. The only thing that I didn't cover per se are the notes, the actual notes. So those actual notes, no matter where you start, in terms of your, if you're starting on G, that is, the notes are G, that would be the one, A would be the two, B would be the three, C would be four, D would be five, E would be six, and F sharp would be seven, and then you're back at G. That's scale. Let me know what you, maybe what songs you already know in G, maybe something else that you would like to cover in G. And that's what I got for this one. Till we meet again. Rock on.